And we're back, the Reel Weirdos, your hosts. I am Jesse Ketman. With me, as always, Mr. Alex Abear. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
You ready to talk about some David Fincher?
I think I am.
He thinks he is. Jeffrey Casino,
Hello,
welcome to the
hello.
podcast for the very first time.
Yeah, it's great to be here for the very first time.
Yeah, good to have you here. So today, doing something a little bit different. We're talking about Mank, 2020 film by David Fincher, Mank. But we're also decided to do a little thing where we're gonna run through the Fincherography, the
Ooh.
Fincher cinematic universe.
We can workshop that.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it, but hey, it is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, David Fincher, I don't know what your guys' specific relationship with him is, but I thought this would be a good sort of director spotlight because A, he's one of my absolute favorite directors. I've seen literally all his movies, which is rare. Yeah. So like what are your guys' history with David Fincher?
Well, for me, it's Fight Club. That's really was the first introduction to David Fincher. I was really obsessed with the book and seeing that movie. Well, I did see the movie before I read the book, but I didn't really put two and two together until much, much later, even though they had the same name. I had just seen the movie when I was younger as a big Brad Pitt fan. And then when I was much older, I started reading Chuck Palahniuk and really noticed, Chuck Palahniuk wrote Fight Club. That's one of my favorite movies, and really that's my history with him. But after looking through his filmography, I slowly realized, he is also one of my favorite directors because I have seen most of his movies, and most of them are bangers.
Yeah, most of them are really good. That's funny about Fight Club because I saw that movie because I was a big Meatloaf fan.
Really?
No.
Okay. I was like, what a niche kind of desire to take with you to the movies, right? Like, Meatloaf's in this. I gotta see this picture.
I was so confused about
He's Bob, man. He's got this bitch tits Bob.
Yeah, but it's like I don't even think I've ever heard anyone say that they're a Meatloaf fan. So that was really the shocking part.
I didn't know if that joke would land, but it landed late, but it landed well.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So yeah, Alex Fincher.
Yeah.
What's the deal, man?
I was trying to think of the first time I'd encountered him, both consciously, going into the movie and knowing that it was a David Fincher film, and then the first time that I saw a movie that I just didn't know it was him. So The Game. We were going to talk about this movie a little bit. I mean, we're talking about all of his movies.
We will.
But that movie was one of the first movies that I saw that I didn't know that it was David Fincher. It might be the first movie I saw from him. I'm trying to remember if I saw Seven or Alien 3 around that time. I don't know. I was 6 or 7. So,
yeah, I don't know if a 7-year-old is the proper venue to show the movie Seven to. It's a little extreme.
But The Game was, I thought, such a cool and original little intricate movie that I loved the atmosphere. And whenever I talk about atmosphere in films, it seems like all the credit for that needs to at least go to the director or the cinematographer, right? Because they're the ones setting up those shots and everything. And then from then on, it's he makes movies that I feel not only are extremely, they can be highbrow, not in a bad way, but they can be considered complex literature, but they're very, very, very entertaining for just the general movie-going audience, I would say. And I think he does really well at capturing both the film snobs or the people who are really into films, and then just the general population of moviegoers. I think he does really well in combining those two people in his audience, or Meatloaf fans too.
Or Meatloaf fans, absolutely. I mean, his glorious tits, in Fight Club.
Yeah.
But you're getting into a little bit of what I find interesting about Fincher is that the meticulousness with which he creates. It's like you feel like he's in command of every tiny little detail, down to the edit, the score. He's definitely a perfectionist. He'll have people do a tremendous amount of takes to get the ones he wants right. And I was thinking about this while I was writing a review for Alien 3. And I was like, what is it exactly? Like, how do I define what makes Fincher great? And it was a really tough question because it is, I think meticulous is a good word, but it's just the command he has over the craft of filmmaking, and also a tendency towards these very dark stories that I tend to gravitate towards as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about him choosing material that is both highbrow and not at the same time, I think that's an important point, because a lot of his movies, it feels like he's taking middle of the road kind of material and elevating it up to this upper echelon through his like pure skill.
Yeah.
And the way that he directs his actors and just every facet of filmmaking working together like so well that it's like a master like a master what's the word I'm looking for? No. The guy who conducts a concert thing.
A conductor?
A conductor.
A masterpiece.
Sure. We're like 5 minutes in. I'm already flubbing all my ideas. God damn it. Like a fuck. I'm so editing some of this. What's that word? Composer.
Oh, got it.
That's what it
Got
is. He's like a composer, and he's just like, he has every element of his composition exactly the way he wants it to be, and he knows what he's doing.
Yes, he does. I mean, I was going to say, like, technically, he's a very adept filmmaker, right? We were talking about Nolan a few weeks ago, and he, too, is good with the mechanical stuff. But there's something about David Fincher's, like, not only that, but his, like, scripts or screenplays and his stories that seems to be, I don't know, he's just so comfortable in his style and in his way that it's hard to ignore his, like, prowess, I guess. And it's hard to ignore his swagger when he makes these movies.
Yeah, it's not super showy in like an early Paul Thomas Anderson way, like, look at me, I'm the director type of shots. It's just like so clinical and perfect.
Yeah, clinical's a good
and
word. Yeah.
I could see somebody who's not like, and this is going to sound super douchey, but someone who's not paying attention to the craft of film as they're watching a movie and are just watching a movie would not like some of his pictures. Like Panic Room is probably one of the least loved. Curious Case of Benjamin Button, where you're just like watching a movie, you know, for the story. But we'll get to those. So Fincher's first film was in 1992. He had directed a lot of commercials and music videos before that, and he continues to do so. He'll do stuff for Nine Inch Nails, who also score a lot of his movies. Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. I almost forgot Trent Reznor's name. I was going to be very disappointed in myself. I know. So in 1992, Fincher had the opportunity to follow up two of the biggest sci-fi horror films of all time. Those being Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. And this is a crazy, crazy debut film because it's almost not a David Fincher film. He didn't like the script, which had basically been in development hell for years. There were no less than 8 screenwriters. He battled for every single inch of creative ground with the producers for like 2 years. And when he presented his cut, finally, they decided they wanted a shorter movie which would take extensive reshoots. And this is where Fincher basically said, fuck you, I'm gone. And they reshot a load of stuff for the film with a totally different crew. So with every other Fincher film, you know that he's in command of everything, including the editing process. With Alien 3, the reason I say you can barely call it a Fincher film is because all he did was shoot some of the footage that was used. It's impossible to say how much. He still completely loathes the film. He didn't do a commentary track. Even years later, when they asked him if he wanted to do a director's cut, he declined that too.
Do you think he takes such a command over his movies today because of these challenges that he faced during the filming of Alien 3?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure.
I think it being his first maybe legitimate or bona fide foray into feature films, he probably had such a terrible experience that it was kind of like, getting your hand burned on the stove thing. And he was like, okay, I'm never going to get myself into a situation like this again, because other directors might be okay with that. Yeah, just slap my name on the title card. I don't care. I was here for the movie. But I mean, based on what Jesse's saying, it seemed like this guy was extremely invested in the story that he was trying to tell, which I can't say other directors don't do, but it shows with the rest of Fincher's work.
It does. It does. Yeah, he almost quit. He was almost just like, screw this industry. But Sigourney Weaver went to bat for him, which is great. And 3 years later, he got to make Seven, which we'll get to. But so did you guys see the Alien 3 assembly cut, it's like a half hour longer and supposedly much more true to Fincher's vision?
I have not.
Nor have I.
Did not check that out.
You didn't see that one, Alex?
I have not seen that one, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's interesting because I didn't rewatch the theatrical cut, but I did rewatch this one, and I was like, okay. It has a really good first half. All the character drama stuff is really good. You have Charles Dance. You have to kind of get over the rightfully unpopular decision to kill off the Newt character in between films, which is just strange. So that whole motherhood dynamic with her and Ripley, it was like a gold mine. But yeah, I mean, the first half is really good, but the second half just becomes this interminable slog through these industrial environments hunting for the alien. I won't go too deep into it, but they kill Charles Dance, who his relationship with Ripley was the core of the movie. And the movie just kind of falters from there.
Yeah, it's definitely the weakest of the Alien quadrilogy.
Do you think Resurrection is better?
I think that Resurrection is more entertaining. I think that this Alien 3 becomes quite boring about halfway through.
Yeah.
And so
the second half.
And also, I have yet to watch the quadrilogy since I was a teenager. So I definitely need to rewatch it again as an adult, but I'm just kind of judging it off my general opinion when I was, young.
The first two are
definitely take that with a grain of salt.
pretty kick-ass.
Aliens are, that's the classics. Those are the best ones, but.
What about Alien Covenant, though?
I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said quadrilogy, I was like, I wonder if we're going to throw Prometheus and stuff in there as well, and Alien Covenant.
That's a whole nother conversation, my dudes. That's a whole nother complainy conversation.
We'll do that for the Ridley
Although
Scott
I think I could distill it real quick. Really good filmmaking and world building, crap script.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there you go. There's our review of Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yep.
So yeah, Alien 3, it's a David Fincher movie, almost in name only. He shot some footage. It's kind of interesting, but, it's not as interesting as what's to come. So 3 years later, he directed Seven. So Seven.
Here we go.
With Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. We were talking when the 12 Monkeys episode, this was the breakout era of Brad Pitt.
Yeah, this was Brad Pitt, just at his high octane pretty boy, trying to break that pretty boy aesthetic a little bit, because he started really taking some grittier movies around this time, and I think that's really what got him some more respect as far as just general moviegoers, instead of just like his pretty boy aesthetic. Like Matt Damon did this a little later. Tom Cruise already had been doing this. Like a lot of these like really handsome actors were like, okay, I want to break out of this Beverly Hills 90210 aesthetic and move into something more raw. And Seven is definitely where I saw later than Fight Club, but you can really see like Fincher creating his vision of dark, gritty, oppressive, tight in the chest, kind of a like, frog in your throat movie atmospheres. And I think that's really his strongest. He's definitely a king of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And also his predilection towards, exploring psychopaths.
True. Definitely.
Yeah.
He loves his psychopaths. You get Zodiac, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl.
He definitely likes to
Panic
explore
Room.
the darker parts of the human mind, for sure. That is definitely his niche in the filmmaking.
Am I right in calling Seven a masterpiece?
I mean, it's pretty perfect. It's hard to find anything really wrong with Seven as far as filmmaking goes. I mean, one could argue that it's kind of now entered that realm of almost like meme, like what's in the box. And
What's
all that
in the
kind of
box
stuff. Yeah,
has echoed through the ages.
It's
been
permeated throughout so much of like movie and TV culture that it can become, I think, campy. I think movies sometimes that do that you can't take seriously, or some people can't take seriously. I love Seven, but I'm also just a huge Brad Pitt fan. So I love every movie that he's in, so that's kind of hard for me. But yeah, Seven, I think, is safe to say a masterpiece, which is impressive for a sophomore film.
So you love Cool World? If you love all the Brad Pitt movies?
Dude, I love Cool World. Are you kidding me? Dude, I watch Cool World. I brush my teeth to Cool World.
Have you seen Cool World, Jeff?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Fuck you.
It sucks. Don't watch it.
I won't, but, wanted
Well,
to
it's got
challenge
Brad Pitt, man.
your smart ass.
Yeah.
I will say about Seven. I mean, I don't know if I'd go to such heights as calling it a masterpiece, but
Contention.
I think
I like it.
I think it's like an extremely good movie. But I don't know. I don't know what I think when I think of the word masterpiece. But I don't know if time plays a role in that. Like after it has existed for a little while, and it's a movie that whenever it's on cable or anything like that, I will always stop and watch it. I think the cool thing about Seven is getting into this atmosphere aspect of David Fincher, which I think is like one of his biggest, pillars of his filmmaking. The fact that you're in this city that is presumably like LA, but also like Detroit, New York, like it rains all the time, right? Which anyone who lives in LA knows that just isn't true. You don't walk out of a building or like a pawn shop and it's not like dumping rain and everything's like this darkness, right? But at the end of the movie, that's where people who live in California, they see this and you're like, oh, I've seen those. You're out in these like amber fields of like just dry brush with all of these electric, poles going through, and like you're like, okay, I know where this is. Now the cool thing about it is that he switches from that first area of the dark and gritty, almost noir-like city, to this like really bright, southerny, central California type look, and it really doesn't break down the movie in any way. It fits like the atmosphere and the tone of the script and what's happening in that scene very well. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, you get these weird little bumps or divots in time and space when it comes to logical filmmaking, but not for David Fincher, I'm saying he does a very good job of smoothing those things over for the viewer.
Yeah, there are two points here. One is what is the point about kind of it being like pulpy almost, like serial killer kind of thing? And that ties into my point about him elevating material, because most of the time you have a movie about a serial killer, it's like not necessarily a B picture, but not in like the higher echelons of filmmaking. So that's an interesting point, and I completely forgot the second point.
Well,
We have to record this so early.
well, I mean, you make an interesting point about Seven, but you have to also acknowledge the fact that Fincher, he does this special thing as far as elevating material, where he really, it's all about the characters. It's all about what's going on in this moment. It's very much a slice of time, slice of life. I hate that phrase, but slice of time.
It makes you think of like a little romantic comedy.
I know. I hate a little
Slice
slice
of
of life
life.
comedy, bro. You know, it's just a little
Hallmark
slice of
Channel.
life.
Just some girls hanging out.
The slice of life, lifetime video of the year. Slice of lifetime video of the year.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Exactly.
God, I had to workshop that joke live. No, but it's Fincher is great at creating like the atmosphere, the area around in which the movie takes place means nothing. He's the king of nowhere, USA. I love that about his films.
Yeah.
All of his films take place in nowhere. Now, Zodiac's a little different, and we'll get to that because Zodiac is so famous for being a Bay Area serial killer because there's just not many of them.
Yeah.
And so I get that. Of course, The Social Network. His more biopic movies obviously have a setting, but as far as his just straight narrative-based fiction movies, they all really don't matter. Like Fight Club, where does Fight Club take place? Really nowhere and everywhere. You know, he kind of has this way of creating, like, it doesn't matter where it is. Let's talk about this moment in time. Not even 10 years from now and 20 years in the past. Let's talk about, boom, right here. From Tuesday to Friday.
I would agree and disagree. I think like it depends what he wants to do, because what he wants to do, if it matters, then it will matter. But like you say, the Social Network has more of a place to it because it's based on real places. Same with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It feels very Swedish. A lot of like natural light and snow and stuff like that. But we'll get to that. And I remembered my other thing. There's a point about Alex talking about, or I don't know, whichever one of you chuggleheads was talking about, like the meme factor of Seven.
That
was
was
like
me.
the what's in the box. And I never think about that stuff when I watch the movie. I am so completely 100% invested, even after seeing it like 12 times. It's a movie I'll watch every couple years and love every frame of it.
Yeah.
Especially after Kevin Spacey shows up.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I love the way they
we
played
know,
him.
we know, but he's still a good actor.
Yes, yes.
Well, he gets shot in the head anyway, so like whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, you know, it's like it's
Spoilers.
I love the chase.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, when they go to his apartment and you see him in these shots, like almost like an old like 1930s noir detective or villain, like dashing away in the shadow or something, and his like long trench coat is behind him and he's wearing the hat, or he jumps out the window and stuff like that, and you're chasing this like faceless man the whole time. But I will say, maybe my problem with Seven is just Gwyneth Paltrow. It's not Fincher's fault. It's not Brad Pitt's fault or Morgan Freeman's fault. Because
Do you think about her like vagina scented candles whenever you watch it?
Classic Alex just hating women.
I don't know. You're maybe right, Jesse. It might have just been all of the hullabaloo that she's been up to in the past decade or so that has really colored my viewing of the film now. But,
Alex has goop on the mind.
Exactly.
If the listener is not aware, Gwyneth Paltrow is an insane snake oil salesman.
Yes.
She's off her rocker.
What are you talking about?
And
Goop
exploiting
products
people.
saved my life, Jesse. Okay,
You just think they did.
I burn
somatic.
her vagina scented candle every night and every morning, and I wake up to that smell and I go, "Yeah, that's Gwyneth, all right." You know.
Is it based on her specific vaginal scent?
I don't fucking know. What the fuck are you asking me? Like, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. It's a bit.
Oh man. Well, our two female listeners have now
They're gone. Jesus, here we go.
They're gone. That's okay.
All right, next movie, I guess.
Next movie, The Game. It's a
Yes.
game
Which
with
I haven't
Michael
seen.
Douglas and Sean Penn. Jeff hasn't seen it.
No, I haven't
Alex,
seen it.
tell us about The Game.
The Game is... Oh, I love this movie. So it's about basically a guy who's like very rich. It takes place in San Francisco, I think. He has all that he wants. He's like the head of some big time company, and his birthday is approaching. And what do you get the man who has everything, right? His brother, his younger brother, who I think in the movie is characterized as a little more off the rails, a little less like like austere and uptight.
Played by Sean Penn.
Exactly. Buys him this gift for his birthday that is literally a game that is put on by this firm. It's like a firm that creates personalized experiences for people and like creates this entire type of quest or game that they have to complete. So Michael Douglas goes to this firm and is like, what is this? And Sean Penn's like, you'll love it. It'll change your life. And it's this insane, like, it's a game, but it's just craziness. His life just starts to go in all of these weird and strange directions.
Yeah, it gets dark. It gets absurd. The game is an interesting movie, and I'm gonna sound super douchey again here, because it's like, if you are not interested in filmmaking and you just watch this movie for the story, and you told me it was awful, I would completely understand, because the logic of this movie, like, if you delve just a little bit beneath the surface, easily falls apart and makes no sense. You're like, how, what? But you just kind of have to let it go and let it ride and just like revel in the atmosphere and the performances and just have fun, you know? And that sort of plays to my point about Fincher elevating material, because this could easily be like a really bad movie in the hands of a different director.
The writing isn't like terrible.
No, it's just the construction.
Yeah, Michael Douglas does really well. I mean, he's in most of the movie. It's like you're following him and his like descent into. It's not even madness, right? It's like you're kind of just like, what is going on? Like, why is the TV talking to him? And all these types of things. It's like basically you insert yourself unwillingly into the Truman Show, if that makes any sense. But less fun, less hokey. Like, I'm not saying the film The Truman Show is hokey. It's just, you don't wake up in this sterilized 1950s like universe. It's just like your life as you're living it. But after you signed up to play this game, everything afterwards, you're like, is that real, or is that like a hired person from this company that is directing my life in this way now because of this game?
You really don't know. And the ending is strange and also illogical, but still really fun. I also really like the game, despite being easily able to pick it apart. So I would recommend it as well. I recommend you see it, Jeff. I recommend people see it if they haven't seen it. Just if you're somebody who gets really, really frustrated at logic, just be prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years later, 1999, we have possibly the ultimate Fincher movie in my life.
Yeah. One of the ultimate
Fight
movies.
Club, baby. Brad Pitt, Edward Norton. Good stuff. Meatloaf, of course.
Yeah.
Number one Meatloaf fan.
Number one Meatloaf fan.
Helena Bonham Carter is great. She's great in this movie.
She's great.
I don't hate women. Anyone listening?
Uh-huh. But I feel a butt coming on, but her performance was terrible and ruined the movie.
No. She's amazing. I love Helena Bonham Carter.
Can I talk about Fight Club, please?
Redemption. Jeff, tell us about Fight Club.
Thanks. Fight Club. Okay, so easily, and you can probably hear the excitement in my voice, easily one of my favorite movies of all time. Top 5.
Samesies.
It fights different movies constantly because I'll watch it again years later and be like, oh my God, this movie's so fucking good. And then, I'll think about it and be like, oh yeah, that movie, I've watched it a bunch of times. It's different. It sits differently, but the book is amazing. I highly recommend it. I'm not going to be one of those like, oh, but the book. No, like just read the book though. It's really good. Anything from Chuck Palahniuk is really good. It's a little edgy now in my 30s. When I read Chuck Palahniuk, I'm like, oh man, this guy's so fucking edgy. But there is an element to him that's still pretty darn genius. But Fight Club the movie, David Fincher probably mastering this idea of atmosphere, all the things we really talked about, atmosphere, character development, the nowhere USA, the nothing setting, all about this like one moment in this person's life where things go fucking bananas. I mean, I guess I could deluge the plot of Fight Club, you know,
Nah.
but I would spare everyone. It's a movie that a lot of people have seen, and I think it really speaks to your point earlier, Alex, about how he makes movies for, like, he can elevate a movie but still make it totally digestible by anyone. Like, I know a lot of, God, we sound so pretentious in this podcast. I know
embrace it.
I know a lot of like, you know, bro-y douchebag kind of guys who love Fight Club because it's like kind of this like testosterone driven, you know, big muscles, shirtless, fighting, kind of like, you know, the plot is like very edgy and intense. And there's a lot of people who, Fight Club is one of those movies like The Joker, where I feel like people are like, I'm Tyler Durden.
Mm-hmm. So they're saying they like it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's one of those movies, but then at the same time, the movie is fucking brilliant. It's gorgeously shot. It's shot in this like triple tone palette. This like, it's like sepia, emerald, and like this almost like washed out cobalt. Like these three different colors that like kind of define the movie. And they kind of switch between these three colors, and that's really the movie's whole palette. To the point where in certain scenes where it's natural lighting, like when they're out, you almost wince like you've been inside for a long time. And that is so amazing that Fincher is able to do that in a movie, is really make you feel like, oh man, I've been like in this basement fighting all night. Or like make you feel like you have insomnia, like you're looking outside for the first time and haven't slept all night. You're like, Jesus Christ. So there's definitely a big element to his atmosphere. And then you just have Brad Pitt killing it. You have Edward Norton, I think, personally killing it a little harder. I think Edward Norton actually is really the star of the show. I mean, Brad Pitt is amazing,
absolutely.
but Edward Norton really just seizes this role, which is, I don't know, I think a testament a bit. I don't know the dynamic, but I don't know if it was Pitt backing off a little bit and letting Norton really take that, or maybe just like both just the understanding, or like just a great team of people working together.
Well, I think what you're talking about is the power of the good director. Really,
truly, yeah.
Balancing all the elements and making them work perfectly in concert.
Yeah, because I mean, Brad Pitt is a very, very physical actor in that movie, especially in Fight Club, right? He's almost like creature-like. You know, he has his shirt unbuttoned a lot, and he like moves around very slinky-like. But Edward Norton, it almost seems just like, okay, let me show you how us actors who don't look like chiseled Greek gods act. You know, like, let me show you like how us normal plebs do it. And David Fincher was able to take both of these energies and put them in the film that they could both be the leading man, and they don't step on each other's toes. So I think that's a really good point going to the direction. It's just like he was able to corral these two types of like different actors, you know? It's like putting it's like putting Alec Guinness up to like Burt Reynolds and being like, you guys are going to be in the same movie and we're going to control this.
No, I agree.
Starring mustaches.
Yeah.
It's this idea of being able to shoot a movie that emphasizes each actor's strongest points.
Yeah.
And I really think he does that well in Fight Club. All of Norton's a great facial actor. He acts very much in the brows. He acts in the eyes. Mm-hmm. He's a very emotive actor, top half of the face kind of guy. And so he acts a lot with his eyes, and he has a very flat delivery because he's supposed to be the narrator in the movie. So he's like this kind of flat tone delivery, and he plays that well in all of his actions, where he's like, even in the scene where he's like fighting his own boss.
Oh my God, I love that scene.
He delivers every line so flatly. Like, why would you do that? You know, it's so brilliantly done, like a narrator would. And they shoot him very close, and they emphasize his face and his profile, and because he's got a very interesting profile. He's a very long face, square jaw, very lanky, and but then Pitt, it's always these big wide shots of him, like, because he's very emotive, like you said, with his arms. So he's like gesticulating and throwing his arms around, and and he has these wild costumes. And yeah, I mean, it just speaks to Fincher's ability to really tie all the elements of these characters and perfectly blend them. He almost reminds me of like the way when you like watch Bob Ross, and when Bob Ross will like put two colors together and you're like, nah, it's not gonna work. And then he gets out the blending brush and he starts blending them and you're like, fuck it works.
Yeah.
Like, goddamn it.
You might be the first person in history to compare Fincher to Bob Ross.
I don't know. I just like, maybe, I mean, obviously their content has two different tones, but it's just the way that he's able to take these big actors. I mean, I'm looking at this list of his movies and I'm like, every one of these actors are just huge, and he's just able to really like weave them together in such a beautiful way, and it's just such a testament to his filmmaking ability.
Yeah, you have the just insane darkness and social commentary in that movie that's really interesting. It has this sly edge to it where it's super comedic, just darkly so. Brad Pitt flying around the house on a bicycle in like a tattered bathrobe with pornography on it. And yeah, it's just great. If you haven't seen Fight Club, watch Fight Club. And if you want even another reason, Jared Leto gets his face punched in real hard.
Yeah, he gets his teeth knocked out.
Yes.
It's
everyone wants
down.
to see that.
Yeah.
And so he looks like a little blonde bitch.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, 3 years later, we go to Panic Room, where Jared Leto gets shot in the face.
And has cornrows.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
And he has
the only good
cornrows.
part of this movie, by the way, is Jared Leto getting shot in the face.
So when was the last time you watched Panic Room? Because I rewatched it earlier this week because I couldn't remember it very well, and I actually really liked it.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I knew you were going to say that. I can't. I'm going to tell you when last time I saw Panic Room. Last time I saw Panic Room was probably 2004, 2005 on like TNT. And I probably saw like the back half of it. And I was like, this movie sucks ass. And then that was probably like the last time I saw Panic Room.
Try it again. So it's this is another one where it's like he's sort of elevating material. I hate to keep going back to this, but it's true. And it's the performances are really good. You have Jodie Foster. Forrest Whitaker wins the movie, in my opinion. You have a young Kristen Stewart, hilariously, as the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a movie that I could really give or take the story, but it's not. It's more about just the construction of the plot more so than the plot, you know. And the dynamic of Forrest Whitaker like actually having a heart while also trying to get into this panic room to get the treasure where these ladies are. And it's another one where it's like you can see Fincher, if you're aware of it, being in command of all elements of atmosphere, filmmaking. The score is super interesting. And yeah, I mean I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, Alex, what's your thoughts on Panic Room?
I saw it within the past year. It was on one of the streaming services when we were up at school, and I just had some downtime, so I threw it on. I enjoy it. I think it might be... I don't want to say it's one of his like weakest movies, because I hate even applying that adjective to it. But if we're talking about, the entire work of David Fincher...
I think you're right, though.
Yeah.
It's minor.
But I actually really enjoy it too. And going to like Nowhere USA, it's like literally we're gonna go to this panic room, and everything is going to take place inside of this house. And he does that so well. He does it so well without boring you, or like, it's not like Rear Window. They're not like sitting in the same shot or frame for the entire movie. But
I watched that this week too. That's funny.
Oh, it's a great movie. But I mean,
It's so good.
I don't get on people when they're like, they like need to get up when they watch that movie and walk around for a second. But this movie, I actually thought, I loved the way Forrest Whitaker's character develops in it. Because you have a sense that he's a little hesitant to be Mr. Cruel Badass guy. But then you realize towards the end, his goal is almost to get the treasure inside the panic room to then save the women inside of it. Because he's like, my partners are going to absolutely kill you unless you give them what they want. So he plays this role of like, I don't know, Fincher just did really well with directing Forrest Whitaker in the film. Also, I just wanted to say that the really bad guy in the movie, the really bad dude that they bring along with that gets his hand smashed in the door, his name is Dwight Yoakam, and he is like a country music star. He's like a well-known,
I didn't
like,
know that.
country music star within country music circles, right? He's almost like when you ask a country musician, like, oh, who are the guys that you like? You know, he'll come up in those names, but you don't see him being like a big time guy. And I've never known what the connection was with him and David Fincher. I don't know if David Fincher was like, hey, you want to be in this movie? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, just play the most sadistic motherfucker you can. And he's like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But he does very well.
I have no idea. I didn't even see anything about that in like the notes and stuff that I was reading afterwards. Little IMDb factoids and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But yeah. Forrest Whitaker, spoilers, he basically sacrifices himself. He could get away, but he saves the women to his own detriment. And so like his kind of struggle is mostly the heart of the film. And I also really like it when movies take place in a single location and are done well, because that, more than anything, I think speaks to the power of the director and the cinematographer as well. Like, I will always point to 12 Angry Men as a perfect example, because that's like literally just a boring room with people talking.
Yeah.
And the way that the director constructs it just makes it so powerful throughout and builds it. And Fincher, I think, does the same thing here. The camera movement is really interesting throughout. It's very fluid. It goes between levels and through little holes in the wall.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it does do that.
It has a very like you're spying on them. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't know exactly how to quantify it.
It does that thing where it'll move through spaces that the characters cannot move through, but the audience can, right? So you see the stucco, the drywall, the insulation, the actual frame of the wood and the wires and everything, and then it just passes through that very quickly into the, or not quickly, but you see that. It goes into like the different rooms. It's like looking inside of like almost like a twisted type of like dollhouse.
Yeah, you're like an omniscient observer. It's interesting.
There's a bit of voyeurism there.
Voyeurism. Thank you. I've been searching for that word for like 2 minutes. Yeah, and I think that's something that Fincher does as well. He almost makes you feel like a pervert for watching his movies, not because they're pornographic or anything, but just the way he places you in the context of a scene, and often like the way he chooses to shoot and edit.
Yeah, it's almost like we shouldn't be privy to these thoughts going on in the character's head, or even in the whole experience of the film. It's like, as an audience member, you're like, I feel slightly uncomfortable in knowing this about this person or that about this person. But it's not, like you said, there's nothing sexual about it. That word is so charged with the sexual aspect, voyeurism, that
definitely
it might even be just like solely for that purpose. But I like using it as well for especially for his films.
Well, the voyeurism is just, it's more of, the way I think about it is just this, there's this idea of watching someone who doesn't know that you're watching them. That's really where the creepiness comes in. And then like people can co-opt that ideal for whatever they want. But really the idea of voyeurism is just the kind of pit in your stomach feeling when you know you're watching something that someone didn't know was being filmed.
Yeah.
And that he's very, very, very good at that. And I would definitely agree. He definitely puts uncomfortable moments in his movies on purpose to kind of change your perspective on particular characters or a particular scene. There's plenty of uncomfortable moments in Fight Club. We don't even need to, the whole, Bob scene is pretty strange and off-putting. The girl with the dragon tattoo is also that way.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, it's an interesting point to make, because really, if you want to look at it broadly, that's what cinema is. You're having a voyeuristic window into a story, I mean, generally the characters aren't aware. Sometimes they are, like in Funny Games, one of our favorite films. But so moving on, 5 years later, 2007, he makes Zodiac, the cool Avengers prequel starring Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo. And it's got Jake Gyllenhaal in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, fantastic film. Really, really love this one.
My only gripe with this film is I wish it was like 2 hours longer.
It's very long.
It's a very long film. That's strange.
Like 2.5, 3 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it pushes around that area.
I just mean it more in like, I've just very much enjoyed like the character development, the story, the whole atmosphere, that I just wanted like more of it, I don't mean like it was a mistake that it wasn't longer. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Yeah.
I really like that movie too. I think it's extremely entertaining.
Yeah, it's a very entertaining movie. I didn't really know a lot about the Zodiac before watching this movie. I mean, I've researched a little bit about him in the past just because it's a local kind of folklore thing for us, but never really looked into him. And so this movie was kind of like my first introduction to that. And I think, Robert Downey Jr. really kills this movie. I mean, he really just like plays up this kind of like douchebaggy newspaper reporter guy really well. And Gyllenhaal does well at what Gyllenhaal does, which is being like a scared mouse in a field the entire movie.
Oh, he's great in pretty much everything, in my opinion. I really love Jake Gyllenhaal.
He's great. He's great at a particular thing, which is like, that's what he's really.
I don't know. He's done good at being a soldier. He was. I haven't seen it, but he's like a villain in the new Spider-Man. I can't comment on that.
The shocked is his number one. That's his definitely go-to emotion in movies. Is like shocked or taken aback about something. I don't know. That's always what Jake Gyllenhaal looks like to me. But I digress.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Zodiac for me, and I also really like this movie. It didn't have the best reception. It had kind of lukewarm, but I think it was just kind of slow and dark for people. But I almost wonder if this is one of Fincher's most personal films in a way, because it's about an obsessive guy like putting together this project in an obsessive way. Which is how Fincher makes movies. And he did like years of research to do it and planned it meticulously. Like there's 5 years between Panic Room and Zodiac. It's not the longest he's gone between films, but it's still a pretty decently long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's an aspect of the shock value. I mean, that scene on the lake in Zodiac, like Berryessa scene, where like the Zodiac comes and like stabs the two people after like tying them up, and like that scene's hardcore. Like that's it's shot flatly. It's very quiet and muted. Showing the beauty of Lake Berryessa, but it's such a like dark and awful thing, and it's all a true story too. So that kind of adds to like the tension and the fear that he's trying to generate. But
was that the one during the day?
Yeah. As far as like speaking to his obsessiveness, I mean, I think that's a bit of an interesting point to make, because I mean, while I would call him an obsessive filmmaker, he definitely is about the particulars and the details. I think it's more like he has a more interest in just the dark psychology of the mind. I think that's a big reason why he's so close to Trent Reznor, who also has that interest. Is like, I just think he really loves like the dark side of human pathology.
Yeah,
that's 100%.
And if anyone can create like an atmosphere of that feeling, it's Trent and Atticus doing their thing. But yeah, going back to that scene that you were just talking about, Jeff, that's one of the first scenes in like either a horror or like a murder type movie where I was legitimately like afraid, even in the broad daylight of the shot. Like there are horror movies when I watch them, like I'm never afraid when the lights are on. Right, because it's kind of like a little trope type thing. Like if the lights are on, you'll probably be okay from any type of like jump scares or anything like that. But that shot of the hooded figure like walking through that dry like gold brush, it was just so, I don't know, it was just so disturbing, and I felt actually scared in that moment. Like this is creepy. But yeah, maybe the Zodiac just had too much of like a extravaganza folklore around him that people, when they saw this movie, they weren't like satisfied with the way that Fincher was telling the story. You know, they're like, I want to see the blood and the guts and like the weird places that he lives in, and it's really just the story of like these three kind of tertiary figures that are trying to figure out what's going on. You have the detective in Ruffalo, and then you have, you know, the small time little, like Jeff said, like, hey, I'm just here to write papers, like in Jake Gyllenhaal. And then you have, you know, the like weathered, like, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was great in it, but that's like what his character plays.
So yeah, I think when people tuned into Zodiac, they're probably expecting like a fun serial killer movie, but it's really about an obsessive nerd for most of it, you know? It has this oppressive dark tone, but it is just like about an obsessive nerd tracking down all these leads very meticulously. It's not like a Jason Voorhees extravaganza or something like that.
But it's not also an action horror thriller with the bad guy behind the gun chasing the dude in the car. It's not like Deja Vu or something like that. It's very much just like a code-breaking geek. People are like, oh, we don't want to listen to you, nerd. And he's like, pulling up his glasses, but the facts and the figures. And it's just like, it's like that kind of movie, but it's like actually the nerd, exactly what the nerd actually like wins in the end.
Oh,
well, nobody
man.
wins because he was never caught. But
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, Zodiac, great picture, very meticulous, methodical, atmospheric, great performances. Just a whole lot of scenes, and they're all good.
The color palette as well that Jeff was talking about. I think that was really important to bring up, because I think that color palette of the sepia, emerald, washed out cobalt is like the perfect way to describe most of his more recent films, and everything from maybe Fight Club on. You know, he took this like, okay, this is my color palette. This is the tones that I'm going to use.
he uses cold, rusty tones. That's definitely what I would call his palette. Is anything cold, anything rusty. David Fincher movies are like, I would call them like an old junkyard chain link fence, like early in the morning, where it's still cold and dewy on the fence.
Maybe in like Eastern Europe or like the East Coast, where the skies are like gray.
To that point, we have a movie the next year which is very much not looking like that.
Yeah.
Called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button with Brad Pitt.
This movie is shot in firelight.
The wonderful Kate Blanchett, Tilda Swinton. Yeah, it almost feels like a Spielberg movie. Those like super warm lighting, like everything has this glow around it.
This uses the orange and red side of the palette of the color wheel, like just to its maximum. They're like, what shade of orange have we not used in this movie yet?
Seriously.
I haven't seen it in like probably 10 years or so. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but my abiding memory is that it's so bright and warm. I'd have to see it again. I remember I liked it, but I think I liked it more for the direction, like just the movie making, than I did the story.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, this movie is a lot like how I put like Hugo in the category of Coppola.
That's Scorsese.
Fuck, god damn it. All right, retake.
One of those Italian guys.
Fuck off.
Oh no, now we're keeping it.
I put this movie in the same category as I put maybe Hugo with Scorsese. Is like, it's a movie that doesn't really fit his dynamic and his frame, but it's still a beautiful movie and it's still done really well. The Benjamin Button is definitely not at all Fincher's wheelhouse, but yeah, he's still, I believe at least, I think he really crushes it. I think Brad Pitt plays a very difficult role very well. Which I think is very much his mantra, but it's just a warm, comforting. I mean, it's like it's almost a Christmas movie
Yeah.
in my mind. It's almost
Yeah.
like that time of year that you would watch it. It's like, it's just after Thanksgiving, so we're gonna sit down and watch Benjamin Button.
Right.
You know, it's one of those movies.
I wonder if it was like David Fincher wanting a palate cleanse after deep diving for like 5 years into
Seriously.
the obsessive Zodiac thing.
I could easily see that, because if you see it, then after that's The Social Network,
Yeah.
which is also like different. It's a little more of a deep dive into like, but more of like a social. I mean, the Social Network, but with more of like a social aspect and a biopic type of lens instead of like getting into the mind of a killer.
Yeah, Benjamin Button feels like a palate cleanser for sure. I'd have to rewatch it. Alex, what did you think of Benny Buttons?
Yeah, this movie is like the most sentimental of the David Fincher movies, I would say. It almost seems it almost veers on like Forrest Gump-y, like Spielberg type of energy.
Yeah, it does.
You know?
And it's like you could almost see it being played by Tom Hanks or something.
Yeah, it's like American folktale or American mythology almost, you know? And I love the locations of it. I love all the different characters and like the different experiences that the main character goes through in his life. He's with the sailor, he's with the button maker, who's his adoptive father, who's also in a lot of Guy Ritchie movies. He's he has the maternal figure, the house like caretaker person.
I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, I mean, I have the movie pretty well burned into my memory, especially the ending scene. There's like a voiceover that Brad Pitt does, and
Yeah, I remember him with his CGI young face on a motorcycle.
yeah, exactly.
That's one of my memories. Like it's one of those movies where I remember how I felt about it, and I remember what it looked like, but I don't remember too much more. So I'll just let you guys take this one.
I mean, the practical effects and CGI of
Yeah.
Benjamin Button are probably the weakest part of the movie.
Have they
Yeah.
not aged well?
Yeah, it's just not like the aging.
Ooh.
I like.
By the way, the
wanted to
movie's
believe
about
in you.
Brad Pitt aging in reverse.
Yeah,
It hasn't. Yes, it hasn't aged well. You fucking jackass. It's more just. Yeah, it's just they didn't. The old Brad Pitt's good, but I think old age makeup has already been pretty perfected at that point.
yeah,
But young, like de-aging, digital de-aging,
Just started.
makeup de-aging had just started.
Yeah.
And it was just not, his younger versions are just not, they're just not good.
it's like that
They're just
Instagram
not- they don't
filter or
work well.
something.
Yes, exactly. You can really see like the facial mapping that they're putting over it. And it's like when he moves, it's like kind of like shaky and
Yeah,
he's no Grand Moff Tarkin.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Although even that was weird.
That was
Like,
unsettling.
something's off
for
there.
sure.
That was so uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, the core of this movie is it's a love story. It's not like you guys said. It's not like a, this weird like dive into like not the supernatural, but the really psychological or things like that. But it is, in its own sense, very philosophical. It's about like, what do you say about life? Like, what can a man aging backwards tell us about our lives? And that's basically what the movie is. And then he also has, very strong romantic connection with Cate Blanchett's character. And it's like another thing to ponder. What does aging backwards do to love? It's funny now that I'm thinking about him like moving backwards in time. I'm just thinking about our Tenet discussion. And I'm like, it was you motherfucker. It was Benjamin Button the whole time who started this reversal of like entropy and war and all this stuff.
He did it all for Cate Blanchett. And
Yeah,
That was the
exactly.
best
And why
ending to
wouldn't you?
Tenet ever.
She's lovely and she's
She's
fun to
great.
watch. She's
I
such
I
a
love
great
Cate
actress.
Blanchett. Yeah.
The ending of Tenet would be so beautiful if it was him on the phone right before he kills the weapons dealer woman,
Yeah.
and he's just like on the phone, and it's just like, and it's like, oh, it was him the whole time, and it just clips to like digitally de-aged
Yeah.
motorcycle,
Yeah.
just like, and that's the end of the
The
movie.
that
real
would be perfect.
protagonist.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Oh, shit.
one more thing I'll say about this movie is that I feel like he might have wanted an Oscar. David Fincher might have that's like the most he was self-aware, I would say, and he was reaching out to the Academy almost with look, I have empathy. I have my master filmmaking. I have big name actors who are acting well. It's like this Americana type, celebration of just these weird little folk stories that mesh together. That's probably the only bad thing I would say about it, is that it just gets a little too self-aware, or like panders to the Academy. But I don't know. That might just be the Forrest Gumpy aspect.
Yeah, I could see how you'd think that by watching it. I don't know if that fits in with Fincher's like MO, but you could be correct. I don't know. The funny thing is, his next movie, The Social Network, was one of his biggest Oscar grabbers. It didn't win. It only won screenplay, editing, and music. It's also Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, and Atticus Ross did the score. They do most of his movies. But it was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, and Jesse Eisenberg, directing, cinematography, all that stuff. And I rewatched The Social Network just a couple days ago, and boy, oh boy, is that movie good.
Whew.
My Lord. It is so good. So thoroughly good.
It's his tightest movie, if I have to steal my favorite adjective from Jeff. I love that description of tight when it comes to movies. Yep. It's his. I think this is 100% cleanest, trimmest, most masterful movie as far as the filmmaking goes.
Interesting. It's so interesting. Out of all of his movies that I've seen, even though Panic Room, I dismiss Panic Room because it's an older movie that I haven't seen in a long time. This is probably my least favorite Fincher movie.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Why is that?
Yeah, and I know this is gonna sound so I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of Jesse Eisenberg.
Me neither. He's very punchable.
As an actor,
his face is very punchable.
I don't. He reminds me of Michael Cera, and I'm not a huge Michael Cera fan either. I just don't like that aesthetic. In an actor. I don't give a fuck about Facebook or the creation of Facebook. Now I understand the movie is beyond way more than it's about way more than that, and it does it in a brilliant way. But I just didn't care. I found it to be a little obnoxious at times. I found all the characters to be really hateable, the worst type of nerds. The nerds that all the gatekeeping 4chan nerds were spawned in that room.
It is an incredibly douchey little universe.
Yes.
It's just I get this sour taste in my mouth when I watch Social Network, and I've only seen it in its completion once.
I think that's kind of the point, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
maybe David Fincher's so good he's turning me off with his talent. He's hey, I'm gonna make a world so real that it's just gonna make you hate it. And it's I don't hate the movie. I think it's a good movie. There are some certainly really cool scenes in it, but for me, it's just off-putting, and when you combine it with Jesse Eisenberg, it's just fucking fuck you, noob. It's just that type of nerd aesthetic and vibe, and just I don't know. It just feels like a giant. It's you could rename this movie to The Creation of 4chan, and I would be oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Jeff's more of a MySpace guy, anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. He's friends with Tom still.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and Tom got a thing. All right.
I just dredged that so far back from my memory banks.
Yeah, Tom, dude. He's sitting in front of the little whiteboard.
Friends with Tom, yeah.
Looking at the camera, and it was you sign up for MySpace, and you already had that one friend.
That's right, man. He knows what's up.
But yeah, I think that he captures this almost Harvard snobbiness, and you go even snobbier with PC Master Race coders, things like that. Anyone in that type of computer science gig.
The forming of Silicon Valley and
exactly
douchey sandals and stuff like that.
When he opens the door at his California home, and Jesse Eisenberg's just decked out in this is what Californians wear. It's puka shells and you said, his sandals and everything. I think it's a great movie. I think the soundtrack is fucking amazing. I listen to it all the time.
Well, yeah, it's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put Trent Reznor on anything, it's going to be the best part. The best part of the movie, Wanted, is the one Nine Inch Nails song in it.
What's Wanted?
The Curve the Bullet one with James
The Curve the
McAvoy.
Bullet, Angelina Jolie, James McAvoy.
No,
movie.
I haven't seen that.
Is Samuel L. Jackson in that?
Morgan Freeman.
Fuck. Let's edit that out.
I don't know. Anyway, The Social Network, you got 2 votes for really, really great and 1 vote for pretty good. It's definitely his most critically acclaimed film. The critics just loved this movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this movie is like rife for like popular and critical like analysis. I mean, it's just like it was the first movie that really like cracked open that door.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
And like showed you like the behind, because before that, this movie, like Facebook was kind of mysterious. It was like this huge monster that everyone was really addicted to.
Unassuming.
It wasn't just like this like stop before the grave that it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where just like all old people stop before they die to like talk about their opinions.
If there's
just
any problem with the movie now with 11 years behind it, it's that, wow, you probably humanized Mark Zuckerberg a little too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like he's basically
like
just a super villain at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Winklevoss twins, like it shows you that like that whole kind of dynamic and like this whole new world of, like undercutting nerds.
Yeah,
so it definitely it peeled back the veil on an area and a genre that wasn't really explored, but
it's a window it's a window into a world that I didn't understand and still want nothing ever to do with.
Absolutely.
It spawned some very annoying social I hate saying that word in regards to this movie, but like social idiosyncrasies or quirks. All of a sudden all my friends were ready to be startup people. They were all being entrepreneurs, right? They would all call themselves entrepreneurs. And they'd use this movie as like kind of like a springboard for their inspiration. And they would always talk about how he like dropped out of Harvard and was like, fuck the system and all this stuff. And I've always had to remind them, like, he got into Harvard first. He had to like you have to work hard and you have to like put your head down and be like pretty decently smart to get some of this stuff done. It's not like he was just some random college frat boy dropout who was like, oh, I'm gonna make this this like random program. So
no, yeah, it was if you take away any elements of morality, it's a pretty astonishing story.
Oh yeah,
like it's just like, wow, that's like, but it almost takes somebody who's that idiosyncratic and like amoral to a point to be such a weird like tech genius and make that much money.
Yeah.
And fuck people over hard.
Fuck
like
his best friend over.
Like your only friend.
Yeah.
Who's probably, I think that's the best performance in the movie, is Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. Definitely.
He really wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's good at that. But yeah, let's move on. The next movie is 1 year later. Fincher's is banging them out at this point. 2007, 2008, 2010, 2011. Which is weird for him, but it won't last, unfortunately. But we have the most understated of James Bond films, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, with Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, who was also in Social Network, and I really like her, by the way. I really like Rooney Mara and everything I've seen her in.
Yeah.
Christopher Plummer, Stellan Skarsgård.
Alex doesn't.
Yeah. That's
wait, is Rooney Mara
okay?
a woman?
Oh, God. Is this a thing now?
No,
this is going to become a thing.
I guess.
I'm trying to make it a thing. I
poor
really
Alex.
am. I'm trying to make Alex into the chauvinist.
For our
of the
next movie,
podcast.
it will be fried green tomatoes and steel magnolias. Like,
Yeah, right.
Let's go hard with
super
the girl
self-aware.
power. Yeah.
Alex Veer's
Yeah,
complete
sister.
180. Yeah, the vagina monologues.
Yeah.
God, this makes us all sound so horrible.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh shit! Oh, it's funny. Oh, okay. Girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah.
Fuck, do I love this
Great,
movie?
man.
Great stuff.
Oh,
Yeah. Fuck, do I love
this movie
Why
makes
do you
me
love it?
angry.
Really?
Oh, this movie.
Sorry,
let's
go
do
ahead,
let's
Jeff.
do love first. Let's do
Yeah.
love, Jeff.
Yeah, I was about to say, let me go for it because I really want to see what you're saying. But I love this movie, one, because, again, let's talk atmosphere. This movie is Swedish as fuck,
Yeah.
which is great. This movie is really, really, I think it's probably one of his darkest movies as far as just tone. This movie is shot like you're freezing cold when you're watching it. It's all the deep blues, piercing snow whites, blacks. Like, just this whole movie is all subdued color tones, which I really enjoy. I love that cold feeling. It makes you feel like you want to wear a sweater. I watched this movie actually with my little brother when he was probably 16, 17. And there was 2 gratuitous anal rape scenes in this movie. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, okay, this first one, this is a pretty gratuitous anal rape scene. And then they have a second one, and I'm like, oh my God, again? Like, how are you going to do this twice in the same movie? And I remember looking over at my at then time 16-year-old brother, he's 24 now, and being like, this is awkward. Like, this is kind of an awkward thing. But I saw it in films, and Daniel Craig is just, he's great. Say what you want about James Bond and
I love
how
it.
campy those films can be.
Not the new
He's
ones,
fucking
man.
great.
The new ones aren't campy.
Stellan Skarsgård, Christopher Plummer. Everyone just crushes it. It's dark. It's spooky. The twist really nailed me because I had never read the books or anything like that. So the twist really got me. Mm-hmm. And it's a great film.
Yeah, Rooney Mara just kills it.
Yep. It's just really
very
dark
convincing.
And really,
it is a very atmospheric film. The available light, just the inhospitable feeling of dread that's just over you at all times. The score, especially,
so good.
The score, like the sort of like ambient drone that pulses at the back of your mind as you know something terrible is going to happen, is super well done. Great story, of course. Why does it make you angry, Alex?
So I regret saying that so early. I might have spoken too soon, but that's not what I meant about the film. Doesn't make me angry. The breakdown and collapse of what should have been a trilogy makes me angry.
Oh yeah, because it never continued.
Yeah. They gave up.
Daniel
Craig was, he had conflicting issues because he was doing James Bond. I think
those movies take like a year to shoot. They're crazy.
At one point, he said after doing one of the James Bond movies that he'd rather stick train stakes into his eyes than think about filming Another Girl with a Dragon Tattoo at the time. It wasn't because he hated filming that movie. It was just he was so zapped and he was so tired, right? And
it's kind of a good thing though, that they didn't do it then, because who wants a tired Daniel Craig?
Exactly.
The guy already looks asleep half the time.
I know, right? That was his whole aura in. No, I love this movie. I'm just so I was so ready for sequels because they set it up. They set it up well for a sequel. The books are very interesting, and I wanted to just add that there's a meta biopic aspect of this film from the guy who wrote the books. So the guy who wrote the books was the editor of this magazine. I think it was actually called Millennium in Sweden. And he wrote a lot about political corruption and about how the world sees Sweden as in the Scandinavian countries as these perfect places, but let me show you why they aren't. There's underlying Nazi kind of feelings that you get in the movie as well. One of the characters, the brother, says to Daniel Craig, he says, Daniel Craig's like, oh, you're a bit of a fascist, aren't you? Or are you a Nazi or whatever? And he's like, oh, don't be mad at me just because I'm the only one in the family who shows it. Everyone in Sweden knew what was happening in Germany at the time. And he's like, I'm just shameless enough to actually put the flags up in my house because I knew what I was a part of. And so the writer of these books brought that up a lot in Swedish culture, and he was feared. He actually feared for his life. He was like, the Swedish government is going to try and stop me, silence.
Well, they did, right? He died under mysterious circumstances and stuff.
He apparently had a heart attack while he was writing either the third or the fourth book.
Sure.
He was working at the top of this old office building where he would go up and down the stairs every day. And apparently, from what I've read, his diet consisted of cigarettes and coffee. So he was a slightly overweight gentleman, but going up and down stairs, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, maybe into your 40s or 50s, plus the added stress of thinking that, you're actually going to get boosted out of your either job or life or whatever. That might have contributed to it, but I loved all of that energy and the key word here, atmosphere, that was put into the girl with the dragon tattoo. I love this movie so much.
All of that intrigue that you were just talking about, all of that kind of dark, twisty, all that feelings is so perfectly woven into this movie. That's what you feel the entire time. If that is the aesthetic that the writer was trying to get, then Fincher definitely grabbed that and ran with it, because this whole movie feels like the twists and the turns and the moves. You're like just like in this dark hallway, and like all of a sudden it's a left and then a right, and you're just kind of following this crazy story, and it's paced really well. The main character is that Rooney Mara, who is the main character,
the lady,
the main female character,
the gothy hacker lady.
Yeah, that's Rooney Mara. That's what I thought. Yeah, she is fucking great. Just really well done. This kind of broken, damaged person that's like trying to claw her way, but it's still like incredibly smart and has the skills. And it's a great narrative on like kind of like this, the way that we can silence women. Sometimes I know Alex will hate this.
Yeah, exactly.
What we talk about, like the way we can silence women sometimes.
Oh my lord.
You know, that's it. It definitely plays into those really well. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, it illuminates.
I'm sorry, I'm touching on subjects you wouldn't necessarily agree with.
Oh, I thought you were apologizing to him for a different thing, but no, you're leaning full in.
Yeah. It illuminates, you know, like the sexual violence that occurs in these like ward of state kind of socialist democratic countries. Not to get into politics, but like that's just what it is. Like, the state will provide for you, you know, in Sweden, if you are like an orphan or foster kid or something like that. And it just shows how dark and how seedy these places can get, and violent eventually these places can get.
Are you telling me, wait a minute. Are you telling me that a Fincher movie has psychotic perverts in it?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, there was something about this movie, though, that he did that psychotic pervert thing so well. I mean, when you start playing Enya in a room that is like super, it's like IKEA's version of what a murder room would look like, right? When Stellan Skarsgård has them tied up. It's like really clean and really like, oh, look at this is the demonstration room. Like, we have these in IKEA's, like where you tie up your victims and put on Enya. And
oh, you tied them up with the profs?
Yeah, exactly.
You tied them up with the oh yeah. I tie mine up with the skull.
Exactly. Let me find the instruction manual around here somewhere. It's like these playful little images of guys, you know, setting
gotta have
up
an
a
IKEA
death contraption.
But Sweden.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweden.
But I love that scene where he has Daniel Craig tied up and everything, and Stellan was he's a great actor. I mean,
pretty much everyone with the last name Skarsgård is
it seems that way. But no, this movie, like I said, the reason that I said it makes me so angry is because I wanted this to be like an epic film series. I wanted Rooney Mara. I wanted freaking Daniel Craig, Christopher Plummer, you know, the whole thing.
David Fincher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was really disappointed when it collapsed.
David Fincher making a film series.
Well,
that's just like a funny concept to me.
In between these movies starting around 2010s, he did start a couple really well-loved television series. He got House of Cards off the ground, directed some of that, and more recently he did Mindhunter. I have not seen either of these, but they're very well-loved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't seen
any. And he's kept doing music videos. Like, he's done music videos for Nine Inch Nails, A Perfect Circle, Aerosmith. He's done Michael Jackson, Madonna, Iggy Pop, Billy Idol, and Alex's favorite, Roy Orbison. He directed a Roy Orbison video.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Meatloaf?
He might have done Meatloaf. It's not in my notes, but hopefully, maybe that's the connection. Maybe that's the.
I'll
Fight
direct
Club
your video.
connection.
You'll be in my movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll say you got bitch tits.
We'll get the Meatloaf crowd in. So yeah, 2014, Gone Girl. We were talking a little bit. Neither of you guys have seen Gone Girl, starring our Lord and Savior Ben Affleck.
This should be quick.
Yeah. Gone Girl, really good movie. Another case, I think, of Fincher taking a sort of pulp, novel story from like, the supermarket shelves kind of, and elevating it by being David Fincher and just making an immaculate production. Great performances. Rosamund Pike is really good as just like a psychopath lady. Ben Affleck does well. I like Ben Affleck when he isn't doing terrible things, which he hasn't been. He hasn't been lately. It was more like the late '90s.
Ben Affleck's good when he's not being
Yeah,
bad.
exactly.
That's basically what you just said. Ben Affleck's great when he's not terrible.
Yeah. But there's a large spectrum there is the point. It's not like consistent, although it has been lately. So good for him, So yeah, Gone Girl's pretty good, and that leads us to Mank. But we're at like an hour and a half, so I think we'll just cut this episode and have this be our David Fincher talk.
Cool.
And we will be
Bye.
we will be back next time to deep dive into Mank and talk about some other movies that are also about filmmaking, which I find to be
Movies about movies.
a very interesting topic. Yeah, we're going to talk about movies. How weird is that?
I know.
Multiple movies.
Talking about movies that are about movies.
Talk about movies about movies. Blah, 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 blah.
We're so fucking meta, bro.
Postmodern, baby.
Good chat, gents. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank
People
you
out
guys.
there.
Sorry about this, too, for the time.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for I hope we've got some good recommendations for you here. I mean, really,
Yeah.
just watch all of them. Is
Yeah.
basically
Yeah,
the
if you haven't
takeaway.
seen any of these incredibly famous and well-received movies that most people have seen, go ahead.
Oh, come on.
Because we're over here requesting the eclectics.
Yeah, and I mean, this is no, like, we're not asking you to watch, like, Spielberg or Ron Howard or anything like that. Like, this is not a large amount of movies. Anyone listening could get through the Finch, what are we calling it? The Finchology?
The Finchiverse.
Finchology. I like that.
The Finchology.
You could probably skip Alien 3, although
Yeah.
that one's up to you. But all the other ones, watch them. They all have a lot of value. Great director. I don't know if it's hard to encapsulate why he's so great, but I hope we did a decent job.
Yeah.
He's just a good old boy.
He's
He's a good old. He's good at making them moving pictures.
He makes those movie pictures, and it's just like you look at his technique, you look at how he does things, and it's just the best way to make movies.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I would have to put him in my top 5 favorite directors.
any
up
type
there.
of person that you are, too. You'll find someone to root for in his movies. You don't have to be, the Brad Pitts or the Jake Gyllenhaals or the Jesse Eisenbergs. It's like you will find in his movies that he treats his characters so well that, like, even when we were talking about the girl with the dragon tattoo, I mean, Rooney Mara is the main character, but so is Daniel Craig, and they don't steal from each other, just like Edward Norton and Brad Pitt in Fight Club. So he must be a very good people person. He must be very good at dealing with other egos and such. And it works. It makes his movies great.
It's strange to say that there's a really strong human element when we've detailed like the psychotic darkness that's in a lot of his movies, but I think that's also part of what makes it great is there is a genuine humanity to it at the core of all this darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It always shines through, especially with Mank. I think Mank is a curious Fincher picture, but we will get to that soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Reel Weirdos signing off, and we'll be back real soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.